Now that we've practiced finding common denominators, now we're going to go back and actually do the addition part or the subtraction part of the problem. Once the denominators of your fractions match, that's the, I'm going to use the word easiest of the steps, because then it's just a matter of combining things together. Okay, maybe up here on this numerical example, maybe I had 5/6 and I wanted to add 1/4. We know that 12 is our lowest common denominator, and so I need to rewrite 5/6 and 1/4, both over 12 instead. Now, the method that we use if we started with a 6 and we wanted to get a 12 is we say 6 times 1 is 12, and that something is 2. Now, I can't just put a 2 on the bottom randomly. That changes the problem. So I adjust and I work with that by putting a 2 on the top as well. Because if I just multiply something by 2/2, 2/2 is equivalent to 1. Multiplying a number times 1 does not change its value, but it does change its appearance. And we've done this before, and we'll do it again. So 5/6 becomes 10/12. If I have 1/4, and I need to get to 12, 4 times 3 is 12. So if I put a 3 on the bottom, I have to put a 3 on the top. 1 times 3 is 3. I have 10/12 plus 3/12. Once the denominators match, I've rewritten both fractions over 12. From here, it's arithmetic. We combine the tops, keep the bottom. So 10 plus 3 is 13. 12 stays at 12. And then I would reduce if possible. This 13/12 does not reduce. It is in lowest terms already. I'm going to hop down to the bottom to the 35th and the 15th one. Let's say this is 11/35 and 4/15. And of course, if I have my calculator, students will say, well, I'll take 105 divided by 35 and see what that number is. We can't do that with things like x squared plus 4x minus 5. So what we do is we compare this list here with this list here. If we look at the right, we have a 5, a 7, and a 3. If we look at what we started with, we say the number that shows up on the right side that was not there on the left side is a 3. So I put the 3 on the bottom and on the top, and I have 33 out over 105. Okay. When we're looking right here, if I started with 3, 5, and I want 3, 5, 7, it says, well, the 7 was missing in my original problem, and so a 7 goes on the top and on the bottom. Again, once the bottoms are the same, we add the tops, keep the bottom, reduce if possible, but these guys don't reduce. Okay. Many of your problems will not reduce to lower terms, but there are a handful that do, so you always have to check that step. So once we know the common denominator, we have to rewrite fractions over that common denominator, and then combine the tops, keep the bottom. So let's say this is a 3 and this is a 2, the problems we were working on before. If we look right here, okay, and we compare that denominator to the one we started with, okay, I think what shows up on the right side that wasn't there on the left side, and that something is x minus 5. If I have to put it on the bottom to make the bottoms match, I can't do that unless I also put it on the top. Now the same thing with the second fraction. If I look at the second denominator that I have, and I compare it to the first, I think, well, what shows up there that didn't show up before? Okay, I need the x plus 3 on the bottom to make the bottoms match, and I can't put that on the bottom unless I also put it on top. Okay, let's do one more. Let's do one more. Eraser. So there's a minus sign here instead of a plus. Let's put a 2 here and a 1 here. As I move from the first fraction to the second, if I compare the bottoms, the piece that shows up on the right side that was not on the left side is this x minus 4. So if I have to put an x minus 4 on the bottom, I can't do that unless I also put it on top. From the 1 that was there before, and if I compare the right side, the denominator I want, compared to the denominator I started with, the piece that shows up on the right that was not there before is this x minus 1. Okay, so if I put it on the bottom, I have to also put it on top. Also, some of you have already said, Ms. Jackson, what about that plus sign? Anytime you're subtracting two fractions, because of what happens over there on the right side with that distributive property, we have to be really careful that we get that negative sign hooked onto everything it belongs to. Okay, so what I recommend that you do is turn all of these subtraction problems into addition problems, which means get that negative sign up in your face right in front of you, so you don't lose it. Okay. Let's say this is a 5 and this is a 2, and let's make this a minus sign in between. Go ahead and pause the video here in a moment and find the new numerators. Figure out what times the 5, you want to take times the 5 and what to take times the 2 to write your new fractions. If we compare what we started with in the purple to what we ended up with on the right side, x plus 2 is the extra piece that showed up. If it shows up on the bottom, it has to show up on the top. Okay, with the negative 2, x plus 2, x plus 3 was there. That second x plus 3 is the piece that showed up that wasn't there before. And I'm going to get that negative sign up in my face with that 2. That's what our new numerators would look like. So here we're to the equivalent of this step right here. Okay, we've got our common denominator. We've rewritten over that common denominator. So now we combine the tops, keep the bottom is our last step. Over here, if we look down that right side to combine the tops, keep the bottom, okay, there's some more steps involved, okay, but they're steps that we should hopefully be comfortable with. Okay, before I can add across the top, I have to use the distributive property. I have to spread out all of the terms so I can see what goes where when I put the pieces back together. And I'm going to try to squish those pieces right here. If we have 3x plus 2x like terms combined to be 5x, negative 15 plus 6 is minus 9. And before I circle my answer, I have to make sure I'm in lowest terms. In order to be in lowest terms, the bottom is already factored. So I just ask myself, can I factor 5x minus 9? Okay, if I can, I do. And since I can't, I say, well, there's no 5x minus 9s on the bottom. So this is lowest terms. Go ahead and pause the video as I'm writing. Make sure you distribute everything on the top. Combine your tops, keep the bottom, factor and reduce if possible. Go ahead and do that on the last two, please. So the final answer on this middle example, it's kind of got squished here. I'll move some things around while you were paused. When we combine like terms, we get x minus 7 on the top, which does not factor. There's no x minus 7s on the bottom, so all three of those terms stay put right where they are. On the bottom one, we distribute the 5 and distribute the negative sign with the 2. Combine our like terms to get 3x plus 4 on the top. 3x plus 4 does not factor. There are no 3x plus 4s on the bottom, which means we're in lowest terms. I'm going to stop this video here and then make one or two examples where you just do the whole thing from start to finish and see how we do from there. And that'll be the last one from this section.